If you grew up watching Gladiators in the 90s, you'll remember the sheer excitement of Saturday evenings. The lights, the music, the atmosphere, the events, and of course the incredible gladiators themselves. The show was an absolute cultural phenomenon, and we're lucky enough to still have it on our screens today in the form of its second revival on the BBC. But during the 90s, Gladiators wasn't just a British sensation, it had become a global one. Countries all over the world had their own versions, all stemming from the original American Gladiators, which debuted in 1989. But in 1995, the competition went truly international, as top contenders and gladiators from around the globe came together under one roof for a unique showdown that tested not just strength and determination, but also pride and national glory. Filmed at the National Indoor Arena in Birmingham, 2 series aired in 1995 and 96, and these special episodes were unlike anything fans had seen before. With gladiators from the UK and beyond facing off against champions from across the globe, the stakes had never been higher, and every episode was packed with plenty of drama and spectacle to leave audiences on the edge of their seats. In this video, we're taking a look back at International Gladiators, exploring the contenders and gladiators that took part, the unforgettable contests that left us longing for more, and the memorable moments that made this such an important chapter in the history of gladiators. Before we get started, if you're enjoying the content here on the channel, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow. So settle in as we travel back to the mid-90s for the ultimate global clash of power, pride, and pure entertainment, International Gladiators. The first series of International Gladiators was filmed sometime in 1994 and debuted on Saturday, January 7th, 1995, and this series would feature different opening credits and theme music. Both series of International Gladiators would follow the same format, a straight knockout bracket consisting of 4 heats, 2 semi-finals and a grand final. And the contenders and gladiators in this first series would come from the United Kingdom, the United States, Finland and Russia, despite Russia not having a domestic series of their own. One of the great things about this series was that the gladiators featured on each episode would always be different, so we got to see all the gladiators compete in a wide variety of different events. All the usual UK gladiators made appearances throughout the series, as well as Spartak and Dynamite from Russia, Terminator and Flash from Finland, and Nitro, Sabre, Ice, Jazz, Sky and Hawk from the United States. Among the contenders in this first series, we had the winners of the last 2 UK series, Phil Norman, Paul Field, Gene Clank and Eunice Huthart, US Season 5 champion Wesley Two Scoops Berry and Season 5 runner-up Kim Tyler, and a whole host of competitors from Finland and Russia. It was sure to be a very competitive series. In terms of the events, this first series of International Gladiators had a total of 13 different events featured. Powerball, The Wall, Poleaxe, Hang Tough, Suspension Bridge, Duel, Gauntlet, Pursuit, Skytrack, Pyramid, Swing Shot, Hit and Run, and Joust, and of course the Eliminator at the end of each show. Finally, our hosts are John Fashanu from the United Kingdom and American Gladiators host Mike Adamley. We also have the legendary referee John Anderson alongside American Gladiators referee Larry Thompson. We'll now go through the series episode by episode, briefly summarizing each of the 4 heats and 2 semi-finals before taking a closer look at the final. Heat 1 saw Wesley Berry from the United States go up against Andrei Akulov from Russia, with Wesley able to convert a 3-second head start to win the Eliminator comfortably, even giving us a little breakdancing at the end.
Across the balance beam, and look at the footwork of Wesley. Where does he get that energy from?
In the women's event, despite only having 2 points from the 5 events and her opponent having a 6-second head start for the Eliminator, Finnish Series 2 winner Pirlo Laitila was able to steal it at the end.
Down, the lorry driver's going into reverse. Here comes Pirlo. She's going to steal it, Mike. She has made it to the top. Now she crashes through the final barrier.
In Heat 2, UK Series 2 winner Phil Norman was able to rack up 46 points during the events, giving him a 16-second head start in the Eliminator against Finnish contender Jarmo Josisto. With a head start that big and with how good Phil was, there was no chance he was going to lose this, although there was a slightly scary moment when he fell off the zip line.
Jarmo working his way across on a handbike. Oh, man! Look at that! I've never seen that before. That was about a 30-foot fall. Is he okay? Yes.
But he escaped unharmed and swung into the semi-finals with Jarmo still on the cargo net. In the women's event, American Gladiators Season 5 runner-up Kim Tyler made it through comfortably against Russian contender Lina Gerasimova. Heat 3 was a cracking show, with one of my favorite moments coming during swing shot when US contender Kyler Storm was able to score an impressive 17 points, all thanks to grabbing 3 red balls on his very first swing.
The nasty twins, they're so bad they don't even like themselves. They knocked nearly all the balls off the cylinder. Kyler Storm, however, was able to grab not 1 but 3 reds.
That impressive scoring helped him bank a 13.5 second head start against Finnish Series 3 winner Tommi Varisto in the Eliminator, which he was able to convert in style. Meanwhile, in the women's event, UK Series 3 winner Eunice Huthart, the only competitor to have ever been invited back as a gladiator when she became Blaze for the 1995 Sheffield live shows, fought a close battle with Russian contender Olga Dudnik, but was able to convert her 3.5 second head start in the Eliminator to make it through to the semi-finals. Finally, in Heat 4, UK Series 3 winner Paul Field put in an impressive performance throughout the episode and ran a great eliminator to make it through. In the women's event, a very notable moment occurred during Duel, as Nightshade received her first ever defeat in the event when she slipped against Adrienne Sullivan.
Adrienne giving her all she wants and whoa! She slipped and still giving it some on the back of the head, and Nightshade didn't appreciate that at all.
Adrienne was up against Finnish Series 3 winner Riikka Hartikainen and was by far and away the stronger competitor, converting her impressive 18.5 second head start to easily win the Eliminator. Semi-final 1 was excellent overall. We had the 2 female winners from Heats 1 and 2, Pirlo Laitila and Kim Tyler, go up against each other, and with great performances in both powerball and swing shot, Kim took a 12-point lead into the Eliminator, which was more than enough for victory, securing her spot in the final. The men's event, on the other hand, was a tense affair, as 2 of the best contenders of all time, Phil Norman and Wesley Barry, did battle. Not much separated the 2 throughout the show, and most notably, they were both able to secure victory on Hang Tough, a game we don't see contenders win on too often.
Then he hits the cameraman. He needs one more dynamic move. He's got it. Keeps his balance.
Phil took a 4-point lead into the Eliminator, equaling a 2-second head start, and I have to say this was one of the best Eliminators ever. Neck and neck basically the entire way, with Wesley not letting Phil build up a bigger lead, but then it happened.
Norman a travelator right away from home. He stumbles. I can't believe it. And as he stumbles, Wesley Barry overtakes him. He wins it.
Phil slipped at the last hurdle, and Wesley is the first male contender through to the final. Semi-final 2 was similarly enthralling. The women's event saw Eunice Huthart go up against Adrienne Sullivan, where once again not much could separate them over the course of the events. Eunice took the early lead on the wall, it was relatively even on powerball, and Adrienne was just a few seconds away from scoring top points on pyramid.
Momentarily, but it looks like she's going to run out of time. What a shame. Tough break.
Eunice pegged further ahead after somehow hanging on in Hang Tough against Jet, before Adrienne scored 10 points on Suspension Bridge to close the gap before the Eliminator. Unfortunately for Adrienne, Eunice's 3-second head start proved too much to overcome, and Eunice booked her place in next week's final. The men's event were similarly close throughout, as Paul Field took on Kyler Storm, and it looked as though Kyler was going to steal it at the end when Paul fell off the balance beam, but he slipped on the travelator and Paul was able to make it through by the skin of his teeth.
The travelator will decide it all. Down goes Kyler. Paul Field has taken it to the final. Who'd have thought it?
And so it was on to the grand finals, and our final two competitors on each side are Eunice Huthart versus Kim Tyler in the women's event, and Paul Field versus Wesley Berry in the men's event. Event 1 was Skytrack, one of the more spectacular looking events and one that I would probably be terrified to compete in. With Lightning chasing Kim and Jazz chasing Eunice, both contenders were able to race fast enough for the Gladiators not to catch them, with Eunice edging the 10 points and Kim receiving 5. In the men's event, Wesley was chased by Wolf and Paul was chased by Sabre, and both had way too much speed for the Gladiators, ending with a photo finish which saw Wesley win by the narrowest of margins. 10 points to Wesley and 5 to Paul. Event 2 was Gauntlet, and boy was it eventful. First up was Eunice, who seemed to take issue with Ice, who had struck her in the face right at the start of the event.
Look at her, she is going wild!
And she goes at the Ice with her pick and takes her on.
Second, she'll get 5 points, and what is she doing now? Hey, she is going back after Ice before John Anderson is able to restrain her.
Calm down, John.
Eunice was able to secure 5 points from this event before Kim got through for another 5 points as well. In the men's event, Paul muscled his way through valiantly, reaching the end in 19.9 seconds, securing him 10 points, before Wesley ran the gauntlet in what must be one of the fastest times ever.
Goodbye, Trojan, and straight through the Terminator.
It's like trying to tackle Smoke. He's so quick. First you have him and then he's gone. He's gone to the 9.8 seconds.
The wall is up next for event 3, and we have Kim being chased by Jet, and wouldn't you know it, Ice chasing Eunice. Can Ice get some payback on Eunice? Well, fairly anticlimactically, Ice was able to catch Eunice near the top of the wall and pull her off with ease, while Jet was eventually able to pry Kim's hands away from the wall. No points for either contender. In the men's event, Paul absolutely flew up the wall. Gladiator Hawk had no chance of catching him, but Wesley on the other hand was yanked off at the last minute by the mighty Hunter. Event 4 is Powerball, one of my favorite events to watch. And up against Eunice and Kim, we have the deadly combination of Ice, Flash, and Jet. The contenders tried their hardest on this one, but the Gladiators were just far too strong, and both Eunice and Kim were only able to score 2 points each. The scores remained 17 points for Eunice and 12 for Kim going into the final point scoring event. The men's event was a completely different affair though, as Wesley and Paul were able to score basket after basket against Hunter, Spartak, and Hawk, until Paul was injured in the final 15 seconds, that is. On the replay, it appears that Paul was just winded though and was able to get back up and finish the event, even scoring 2 more impressive baskets. The scores are very high in the men's event, but still very close, 33 for Paul and 36 for Wesley. The last point scoring event before the Eliminator is the Awesome Duel. The women's event was fairly uneventful, as both contenders were able to hold on versus Flash to secure 5 points each, meaning the final scores are 22 points to Eunice and 17 points to Kim. Will that 2.5 second head start be enough for Eunice to secure victory? In the men's event, both contenders were also able to score the same points. But that's because Russian gladiator Dynamite stepped over onto the contenders platform on both duels, meaning Paul and Wesley picked up 10 points each. So a very high scoring affair, but only 3 points separate Paul and Wesley going into the Eliminator. This is going to be a good one. The women's eliminator first, and Eunice's head start grows into a much bigger lead as Kim has a little trouble getting up the rope at the beginning. Eunice reaches the top of the cargo net just as Kim begins her climb, and all Eunice has to do is take it steady and the title is hers. Kim keeps fighting though to make up the ground, but then takes an awkward landing off the zip line. Unfortunately, the lead Eunice has is just too much, and she's able to race up the Travelator and become the first Women's International Gladiators champion. A superb performance and a highly deserved victory.
I just didn't dream it for 1 minute. I just can't believe it. Wow!
Well, take a couple more laps around the arena, let it sink in. Congratulations, and here's your prize.
In the men's eliminator, Wesley starts with a 1.5 second head start and held the eliminator record at the time of 50 seconds. But with how quick Paul is, that could evaporate very quickly. Paul is able to make up the time at the beginning before they both race up the cargo net. Wesley makes up some ground though, zip lines down to the bottom, and has the race in his hands. Paul has to hope for a mistake, but Wesley keeps his cool, charges up the travelator, and takes the glory. Wesley Two Scoops Berry is the first male champion of International Gladiators. Wesley runs into the audience to celebrate with the crowd, and the first series of International Gladiators comes to an end. The second and final series of International Gladiators aired the following year between April and June of 1996, and there are a few changes of note. First of all, Mike Adamle returns to host the show, but alongside him now are Ulrika Johnson from the UK and Australian Gladiators presenter Kimberly Joseph. There are also contenders and gladiators from a much wider range of countries. This time the United Kingdom, the United States, Australia, Russia, Germany, and South Africa. In fact, there are quite a few gladiators taking part in this series. There are all the usual British gladiators alongside Dynamite, Titan, Astra and Lynx from Russia, Sabre, Ice, Jazz and Hawk from the United States, Impy, Samson, Sahara and Delilah from South Africa, Giant, Flash, Angel and Power from Germany, and Vulcan, Hammer, Fury, Flame, Delta, Storm and Tower from Australia. That's a lot of gladiators and should make for an excellent series. When it comes to the events, this series was mostly the same as the last, except Pursuit, Hit and Run and Joust were out, and in their place we got Atmospheres and Pendulum. Other than these changes, this series progresses the same as the first, 4 heats, 2 semifinals and the grand final. But there are a few twists and turns along the way that make this series a little more interesting. In Heat 1, we had Miriam Loesch from Germany going up against Peggy Odita, winner of Season 5 of American Gladiators. And for the men, we had Alexander Maltsev from Russia versus UK Series 4 winner Mark Everett. In the women's event, Peggy showed just why she had become American Gladiators champion by running up a whopping 35-point lead across the 5 events. In particular, Peggy absolutely raced through Gauntlet in just 10 seconds, while the German contender didn't even make it past the first Gladiator.
First is Jazz. Jazz, a superb all-singing, all-dancing gladiator from America. And Miriam takes another run at it. Jazz saying scat with that ramrod of hers.
By the time the Eliminator came around, Peggy was just too far ahead and was never going to be caught, easily booking her place in the semi-final. The men's event, on the other hand, was a much closer contest. By the end of the 5 events, just 3 points separated Mark and Alexander, as they ran a very close Eliminator for its first half, but with Mark reaching the top of the cargo net first, he was able to widen the gap between the two and race up the travelator to go through to the next round. In Heat 2, we have UK Series 4 winner Janet Allen against our very first South African contender Leanne Liebenberg, and on the men's side, Andrew Halliday, the first winner of Australian Gladiators, against Andreas Sasse from Germany. This was quite an eventful episode to say the least. For a start, on the third event, Pyramid, both female contenders were able to make it to the top, the first time that had happened in the UK according to commentator John Sachs. And unfortunately in the men's game, contender Andreas suffered an injury after Hawk heaved him off the pyramid and he landed awkwardly, rendering him unable to continue. In his place, we have a substitute contender, also from Germany, Dennis Gali. By the end of the events, South Africa's Leanne had secured a 10-point lead, equaling a 5-second head start in the Eliminator. But by the time they had reached the cargo net, that lead was gone. Simultaneous zip lines down to the ground, across the balance beams together, and a straight race up the travelator. But Leanne's legs are just gone, and Janet is able to make it up first and secure her place in the next round. In the men's Eliminator, Andrew's lead of 20 points and his 10-second head start proved too much for Dennis to overcome. Especially with how quick Andrew was, that had to be one of the fastest Eliminators ever.
Onto the travelator, heaves himself to the top, yes, and through the paper burst for a place in the semi-final.
Heat 3 saw Australia's Laureen Bavard take on Luda Makchenko of Russia, and American Gladiators Season 7 champion Pat Chismazia against Prince Sonny of South Africa. Two very close battles as this show progressed, with Laureen able to convert her 7-second head start on the Eliminator to a comfortable win, and Prince Sonny losing a 5-second head start on the handbikes to lose to Pat, who ran an incredible Eliminator. Pat is definitely going to be one to watch as the series progresses. Lastly, in Heat 4, we have something a little bit different. Instead of 2 contenders on each side, we have 3. For the women, we have Elena Lebedenko from Russia, Claudia Lederer from Germany, and Leanne Liebenberg from South Africa, who you'll remember we just saw lose to Janet Allen in Heat 2. For the men, we have Peter Brits from South Africa, Yuri Volkov from Russia, and Dennis Gali from Germany, who was the replacement for Andreas Sasse in Heat 2. The reason for this change was to give the countries not yet represented in the semi-finals, namely Germany, Russia, and South Africa, a second chance. The way it will work is that the 3 contenders will be whittled down to 2 after the third event, with the lowest scoring contender being eliminated. All of the events proceeded exactly as they usually would, with the exception of Atlaspheres, its first appearance in International Gladiators, where 3 contenders and 3 gladiators would go from a standing start rather than rolling off the raised platforms from the corners. After 3 events, we unfortunately said goodbye to Claudia, who was only able to manage 3 points, and Dennis, who fought a tough battle against Yuri and Peter. By eliminator time, Elena had amassed an 11-point lead, which, alongside Leanne struggling to get over the first hurdle, proved plenty of breathing space for her to secure the final women's place in the semi-final.
But Elena Lebedenko strides up the tabulator, and Russia have a place in the ladies' international semi-final. Well done, Elena!
The men's eliminator, on the other hand, could have gone either way, with just 1 point separating Peter and Yuri. But after Yuri struggled on the handbike, Peter was able to open up a nice lead that saw him claim the last semi-final spot.
Up the travelator, here he comes! He rolls onto the platform to swing into the men's international semi-finals. Peter Brits from South Africa, a superb eliminator, and the South Africans party!
Semi-final time, and first up we have Andrew Halliday from Australia up against Sean Clay from the UK. Who's Sean Clay, I hear you ask? Well, unfortunately, Heat 1 winner Mark Everett contracted a virus before filming was scheduled to take place and couldn't take part, so we have Sean in his place. Sean had competed in Series 4 the previous year, where he lost in his first heat. For the women, we have the UK versus the US, Janet Allen versus Peggy Odita. Janet ended up getting injured on Gauntlet after landing awkwardly and had to be replaced midway through by Jackie Kinsella. But unfortunately, Peggy was just too good on the night and continued racing into a hefty lead, 55 points to 18, an 18.5 second head start. And with how well Peggy has been doing, you would have thought this eliminator would just be a formality. But what followed was one of the most tense eliminators of all time. Despite reaching the travelator while Jackie was only at the top of the cargo net, Peggy's legs just wouldn't carry her up. Jackie started closing the distance but then slipped off the balance beam. Eventually, both contenders stood at the bottom of the travelator, absolutely exhausted. It was anyone's game at this point, and after what felt like an eternity, they both gave it one last go, and Peggy was finally able to reach the top and book her place in the grand final. Nail-biting stuff. In the men's events, Andrew Halliday showed his pedigree by building up a 25-point lead over Sean Clay by eliminator time. And with a head start that big, he wasn't going to let it slip. A super impressive eliminator once again from Andrew sees him go through to the grand final.
And now here comes Andrew Halliday for a place in the international final. Brings it home for Australia. We said in the heats this was a man to watch out for, and he was well worth watching. The Aussies delirious.
In semi-final 2, we had American Pat Chismazia up against Peter Brits from South Africa, and Laureen Bavard from Australia up against Elena Lebedenko from Russia. However, in the very first event, Elena picked up an injury on Pyramid, the game that seems to cause the most injuries in Gladiators, and was replaced by Luda Makchenko, who had lost in Heat 3. We also got to see the Big Bad Wolf doing his thing at the end of Men's Pyramid.
Did you lodge an official complaint?
I just
said about it when it come down.
It wasn't him. It wasn't him.
Oh, Peter Briggs and Wolf, the pits.
The men's events were relatively low scoring in the end, with Pat taking an 11-point lead into the eliminator. And with his fastest previous eliminator being 56 seconds, it was going to take a mammoth effort from Peter to win this. And while Peter was able to make up some ground and get to the Travelator just after Pat, it wasn't enough, and Pat takes the second men's spot in next week's grand final. In the women's eliminator, Loreen was able to secure enough points for a 10.5 second head start, and with Luda struggling on the rope climb, that gave Loreen enough breathing space to be able to take a good long run up the Travelator and secure the last place in the final.
Here she comes, head up high, pumps up the Travelator. She's made it. Loreen Bevard from Australia is a finalist in International Gladiators.
And so the stage was set, and on June 8th, 1996, the grand final of the second and last series of International Gladiators was broadcast, with two showdowns pitting Australia versus the United States. Loreen Bevard against Peggy Odita, and Andrew Halliday versus Pat Chismazia. And our first event is poleaxe. The women have the unfortunate task of going up against the incredible Lightning. Loreen climbs well, but is nowhere near fast enough to reach the top before Lightning, and Peggy gets off to a terrible start as she slips and falls off midway up the pole. So unfortunately, no points for the women in this first round. For the men, they have the daunting task of trying to climb the pole faster than Hunter, who is very quick for a big man and easily beats both Pat and Andrew up the pole, although Andrew did get very close to winning. Also, no points for the men in this opening event. Event 2 is Powerball, and Peggy and Loreen go up against International Gladiators Sahara, Astra, and Angel. On paper a formidable team, but I guess they must have been having an off day as Peggy and Loreen were able to score basket after basket, ending the round with a very impressive 38 points between them, the highest scoring round of Powerball ever.
Time running out, and for the first time in Powerball, it's the Gladiators who are grateful. Peggy again, this is held for the Angel, two more. What an event for the contenders, the highest scoring Powerball ever.
The men go up against the team of Impy, Dynamite, and Titan, and they get off to a good start before Dynamite takes a knock midway through and play is paused. The lads pick up where they left off when play resumes, but again the whistle goes with 8 seconds remaining as Andrew's helmet comes off. A flurry of more baskets at the end leaves Andrew with 18 and Pat with 14, John Sachs telling us it's the highest scoring men's Powerball ever. Next up, it's Pendulum, an event I really hope they bring back on the BBC in the future. Loreen goes up against Vogue first and has a great strategy of getting right down underneath the pendulum and trying to stay there for as long as possible. That strategy pays off and it's 10 points for Loreen. Peggy next against Zodiac, but unfortunately she falls off midway through and receives no points for her efforts. In the men's event, Pat goes up against Flash, and Pat's strategy here is excellent. He first gets right up to the top of the pendulum, running rings around it to stay away from Flash, and then appears to be ducking down and trying to hide from Flash. The Gladiator makes a move for it right at the end, but it's not enough and Pat wins a well-earned 10 points. Andrew then goes up against the Wolfman, employing the same strategy as Pat and to great effect, as Wolf was unable to catch him and Andrew also goes away from the event with his own 10 points. Event 4 is Hang Tough, and this is certainly an eventful one. First up is Loreen against the undefeated on Hang Tough Lightning, a record she's able to maintain as she grabs the same ring Loreen was reaching for, causing her to fall. Up next is Peggy against Jet, who is also undefeated on Hang Tough, but that's about to change as Peggy puts in a great performance to get all the way across to the other side and collect a well-earned 10 points.
One ring, Peggy's there. She's done it! 10 points, the first time ever the Jet has been defeated on Hang Tough.
In the men's event, Pat goes up against Cobra, who is able to get right on top of Pat almost immediately, but then gets one ring, leaving Pat to swing past unimpeded. Cobra eventually falls off, and Pat makes it across to the other side for another excellent 10 points. And I thought this little bit when Mike Adamley jumped off the platform after the interview was very funny for some reason. Things didn't go quite as well for Andrew, however, as Gladiator Giant catches him in the middle of the rings and brings him down. We also notice here that Andrew's shoulder is heavily strapped from an injury he picked up earlier in Powerball. Next, the show has invited back last year's champions Eunice Huttart and Wesley Berry, and after a quick interview with both, Wesley jumps over a car for some reason. A bit random, but very impressive nonetheless.
Well, he said he could do it, and there it is. Let's see it one more time in slow motion. Wesley, 2 scoops, takes the car.
And with that, we go into Duel, the last chance for the contenders to pick up some points. A ferocious battle between Loreen and Jazz secures the contender 5 points, and Peggy expertly knocks Flame off the platform for a huge 10 points.
Peggy digs in, ducks, and nudges her off the platform, out the back door with just under 5 seconds left. Peggy Odita of the USA scores 10.
A bit of a mismatch next in the men's event as Pat goes up against the massive Vulcan, and within 10 seconds Pat is knocked to the floor. No points for him. However, we next learn that injury Andrew picked up was exacerbated on Hang Tough and he can't carry on. So for this final event and the Eliminator, he is replaced by fellow Aussie Shane Saltmarsh. Shane unfortunately can't add to Andrew's points total as he steps across the platform on Duel and wins no points. So it's all set for our championship eliminators. First up is Loreen against Peggy, and Peggy's 13-point lead earns her a 6.5 second head start. Peggy sets off well, but Loreen amazingly pulls it back as they hit the cargo net at the same time. Incredibly, Loreen reaches the top of the cargo net first, and it's anyone's title to take at this stage. Simultaneous splashdowns from the zip line, Peggy is slightly faster over the balance beam, but then Loreen hesitates at the bottom of the travelator and Peggy is able to power her way up and through the paper.
To become the International Gladiators Champion of Champions. Peggy's going for it. Has she got enough? Yes, she has. Peggy Odita from the US of A is the Ladies International Gladiators Champion of Champions.
Peggy Odita from the USA wins International Gladiators. A thoroughly deserved victory and a great performance from Loreen. The men's eliminator was also quite close. Pat's points from the events meant he started with a 3-second head start, but Shane is fresh, having only competed in one event before this, so he could have enough in the tank to pull it back. Pat maintains the lead into the cargo net and ziplines down to the final obstacles before almost falling off the balance beam. Luckily, he's able to regain his balance and hits the travelator with everything he's got. With Shane just meters behind, Pat reaches the top and swings through the paper to be crowned International Gladiators champion.
He's there, he pumps up the travelator. Patches Marcia from the United States, the men's 1995 International Gladiator Champion of Champions. The party's already started.
A superb performance from Pat all series long, certainly one of the top contenders in Gladiators history. A quick interview with both contenders before this second and final series of International Gladiators draws to a close. Looking back, both series of International Gladiators were truly something special. They took everything that made Gladiators great and turned it into a global celebration of sport and entertainment that tested the contenders' speed, strength and determination with the added pressure of representing their country. Fans loved it because it felt bigger than anything we'd seen before and allowed us to see contenders and gladiators from around the world competing against each other, adding a whole new level of excitement. There was a real sense of unity and friendly rivalry that made every episode feel like an event. And even now, almost 30 years later, those incredible moments still stand out. The eliminators that went right down to the wire, the incredible athletic performances, the surprising results, and the unforgettable characters that made the show so much fun to watch. With the BBC revival that started in 2024, Gladiators is back and is as popular as ever, bringing a whole new generation of fans into the arena. And with Russia launching its first domestic series in 2025, and both Germany and the United States returning with new versions in 2026, the Gladiators universe is expanding once again. So really, there's never been a better time to bring International Gladiators back. Imagine today's gladiators and contenders from all these different nations going head to head in a brand new global tournament. I think it could be absolutely spectacular and would love to see it happen. It would be the ultimate way to celebrate everything this show stands for: strength, determination, grit, pride and pure entertainment. For now, we can only hope that one day International Gladiators will return. But until then, we can look back fondly on these two incredible series that proved just how powerful and universal the Gladiators spirit really is. Many thanks for watching, everyone. What are your memories of these special International Gladiators series? And would you also like to see a new International Gladiators sometime in the future once the new reboots get underway? Let me know your thoughts and comments below. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you again in the next video.